The day I last saw the sun was October 17th, 1834. The date was etched into me like an invisible scar, for it marked not only the end of a life, but the birth of a cursed eternity. That late afternoon, I was walking through the narrow streets of Salem, Massachusetts, when the city still breathed the glory of its whaling ships and the trade that brought spices from all over the world. The colonial houses cast long golden shadows, and the Atlantic wind carried with it the scent of salt, fish, and smoke from hearths. The sun was setting over the sea, tinting the restless waters with copper, and I thought, like any distracted mortal, that such a spectacle would repeat itself for me forever. I remember sitting before the old Charter Street Cemetery, watching how the twilight light spilled over 17th century headstones, carved with skulls and angels' wings fated by time. It seemed as though the sun itself sought to wrest secrets from the stones. I did not know I was, in truth, bidding it farewell. Salem has always borne an invisible weight. Its alleys whisper stories of witches, trials, and pyres. And that night, the echoes of the past seemed to call to me. When the church bell tolled for the last time, I felt a chill cut through my skin like a blade. It was not merely the fall of night. It was the omen of what awaited me. The sun vanished, and with it, my humanity. The night did not embrace me as before. It swallowed me whole. And there, in 1834, beneath Salem's dark sky, I ceased to be a man to become something even time itself dares not erase. I saw him for the first time that night, October 17th, 1834, when the streets of Salem had already been overtaken by silence. The city slept, but its ghosts remained awake, and among them walked the one who would change my fate. He seemed a man out of another age, clad in a long, dark wool coat, its high collar concealing part of his face. But his eyes, his eyes betrayed the lie of humanity. They were like two pools of flaming amber, motionless, yet so intense they seemed to pierce through flesh, bone, and memory. When I looked at him, I felt naked, stripped of all defense. His hair was black, straight, falling to his shoulders, as though the passing century had never dared touch it. His skin, of an almost translucent pallor, reflected the moonlight like cold marble. There were no wrinkles, no trace of time upon him, only eternity carved into a beauty not meant for men. He introduced himself with nothing but a whisper, a name that might have been true, or perhaps only another disguise among countless others he had already worn. Elias. The word slipped from his lips with poisonous smoothness, charged with the magnetism of one who had long seduced kings and the condemned, saints, and murderers. I should have fled, but there was no escape. His presence was like gravity, and I was drawn to him, fascinated, terrified. Elias did not ask permission. Eternity does not ask. His cold hands touched my face, and then I felt the snap of flesh breaking, the bite, precise, lethal, inevitable. The pain was brief, but the transformation slow. My body writhed as though engulfed in flames, blood turning to lava rushing through my veins. The world sank into silence, and only the sound of his voice echoed within me. The sun no longer belongs to you. Those were the last words I heard before the void consumed me. When I awoke, I was no longer a man. The world smelled of iron, of blood, and of damp earth. My heart was silent, yet my senses more alive than ever before. Elias watched me from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction, like a sculptor contemplating his masterpiece. He did not stay. Ancient vampires never do. They are like the wind. They pass through our lives, mark us with their touch, and vanish, leaving behind only the weight of the curse. Thus I learned alone the cruel rules of my new existence, The uncontrollable thirst, the fragility before the light, the fate of hunting and killing in order to continue. Eternity not as a gift, but as a prison. And from that night on, 1834 ceased to be merely a date. It became both my tomb and my birth. Elias had given me the poisoned gift of immortality, then departed, carrying with him the last memory that I might still have been human. The years passed like leaves dragged by the wind, and yet Salem never ceased to watch me. The streets, the alleys, the creaking wooden colonial houses, all seemed to hold invisible eyes, fixed upon my nocturnal steps. It was not mere paranoia. I knew that someone or thing followed me. The mist would appear from nowhere, crawling over the ancient stones like a living creature, concealing and revealing silhouettes at the whim of the wind. The sound of my own footsteps echoed like hammer blows in the silence, and at times they doubled, as though another cadence resounded behind me, pursuing me with cruel patience. The Charter Street Cemetery, where I had witnessed my last sunset, became both my refuge and my prison. The decayed, moss-covered headstones stood as silent witnesses to my nightly hunts. There, I fed upon the unsuspecting, drunken travelers, sailors who could not find their way back to the harbor. But now, when I entered among those graves, I no longer felt like the hunter. I felt like the hunted. A dry sound, the crack of a branch, the scrape of metal against stone, froze me in place. It was no animal. It was something that walked upright, that knew where I was, that observed me with predatory calm. The wind carried a strange scent, not of blood, but of iron and gunpowder, as though weapons were being prepared in the darkness. Vampires do not breathe, but I swear that night something compelled me to hold my breath, like a man hiding from the inevitable. The pursuit grew more intense with each passing night. Masterless whispers echoed behind me in the alleys. Shadows moved where no one should have been. I felt the presence, near and patient, like the gaze of a wolf upon a stag. And then I understood. Salem did not belong to me. It never had. The city does not tolerate monsters for long. It breeds its own ghosts, but also its hunters. And on that damp night, amid the fog and the silence, I realized I was not the only one wandering. Someone was waiting for me. Someone who knew what I was, and who had decided that my eternity must end there. He finally revealed himself on a night smothered by fog. I was wandering through Charter Street Cemetery, feeling the presence draw ever closer, when I heard the dry sound of a dog growling in the distance. It was no stray animal. It was a warning. Moments later, a firm voice cut through the silence. I have found you. From behind the gravestones rose a figure wrapped in a heavy leather coat, its collar raised against the cold. A wide-brimmed hat concealed part of his face, but not his eyes. Clear, cold, unbreakable, like blades of steel. In his right hand, he carried a stake of dark wood, carved with symbols I recognized from ancient grimoires. In his left, a firearm, its chamber gleaming in the faint moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of gunpowder and iron. He was no ordinary man. His movements were calculated, meticulous, like one who had spent an entire lifetime preparing for this moment. They say you were first seen in 1834, a ship that never returned to sea, a man never again seen in daylight. You are a shadow that Salem has not forgotten. With every word, I felt he knew my story better than I did myself. He was not merely a pursuer. He was a scholar of the night, a specialist in monsters like me. The stake gleamed in his hand, and I saw that it was inscribed with names of vampires he had already destroyed. There were many. For an instant I hesitated. He was mortal, and yet in his stance, there was something that paralyzed me. The conviction of one unafraid of death. When he advanced, the fog parted around us, as though the very air recoiled from the clash about to unfold. In him, I saw not merely an enemy, but the reflection of what Salem had always been, a city that hunts its demons until the last is silenced. And on that night, the hunter had chosen me as his verdict. He came forward with the precision of an executioner. The stake cut through the air and narrowly missed, piercing my chest. The impact wrenched from me a guttural roar, more beast than man. The gun fired in the same breath, and its thunder echoed among the tombstones. The projectile tore into my flesh, burning like liquid fire, a bullet steeped in holy water. I staggered, feeling the iron sear from within. The pain was unbearable, but instinct for survival drove me forward with brutal speed. I seized his arm, trying to wrench the stake from him, but the hunter moved like a man long accustomed to facing monsters. A well-placed kick shattered my ribs, and I heard the sharp crack resound inside my own body. Blood poured from the wound in my shoulder, running hot down to my hand. Its scent maddened me, awakening what I had always fought to contain. My senses erupted in fury. Each pulse of his vein was a drum summoning me to slaughter. He drew the short blade at his waist and drove it into my flank. The steel was etched with runes, and its touch burned me as though fire had been kindled inside my flesh. I collapsed to my knees, the cold earth against my face, and for a moment I thought it would all end there, that my long burden would be finished by the hand of a mere mortal. But hunger spoke louder. My broken bones began to knit themselves together with grotesque snaps. My jaw lengthened, teeth tearing through the flesh of my gums, bared as razor fangs. The beast that slept within me awoke fully, and I rose, not as a man, but as a predator. I lunged at him with unrestrained violence, seizing him by the chest and hurling him against a gravestone, which shattered beneath the impact. His body struck the stone, yet even wounded, he still clutched the stake tightly, ready for the final blow. I roared, a sound that did not belong to this world, and then the struggle devolved into savagery, flesh against steel, claw against stake, blood against gunpowder. There was no strategy left, only the raw brutality of two fates colliding that night, the hunter and the beast, each determined to destroy the other, even if it meant losing everything. The battle descended into the kind of frenzy only monsters and desperate men can reach. I tasted the metallic tang of my own blood, mingled with gunpowder and the dust of shattered tombstones. The hunter, though exhausted, still fought. His eyes burned with a conviction I had never possessed as a man. He believed in his mission. He believed in his destiny. When he raised the stake for the last time, I saw his hand tremble. Not from fear, but from effort, from exhaustion. He was not eternal, and therein lay his weakness. I seized his arm before the final strike and twisted it until I heard the bones snap with a sharp crack. His cry echoed among the trees, but there were no witnesses, only the night and the graves. I tore the weapon from him and cast it aside, then gripped his throat, lifting him from the ground. He faced me until the very end. He did not beg for mercy. His eyes spoke what his mouth did not need to utter. If not I, another will come. And then I bit. The blood surged hot, pulsing, and every mouthful was fire and sin coursing through my insides. It was the taste of victory, and at the same time, of damnation. I felt life drain from his body, slowly, resisting, until at last, his eyes lost their light. The hunter was dead. I released him, and his body fell upon the cold earth, just another corpse joining the silent ranks of the cemetery. The stake rolled near me, stained with the blood of so many he had destroyed. For an instant, I nearly drove it into my own chest, just to end the charade of eternity. but I could not. The curse held me fast, stronger than any desire for rest. The wind swept through the gravestones, carrying with it an omen. He had been right. Others would come. Hunters will always come, for the world does not tolerate what we are. I may survive this night, but the war never ends. And as the sky began to pale on the distant horizon, I fled into the shadows, feeling the sting of light already threatening my skin. Once again, I escaped. Once again, the night claimed me as its cursed child. I killed the hunter, yes, but in doing so, I realized a bitterer truth. There is no victory for the damned, only more nights, more blood, more silence, and the sun I shall never see again.